perfect warlock, weapons and supplies, but you need a place to track your stuff, cause you're so disorganized. You click open the web page, you heard about a critical role, and now you're ready to kick some butt in that mine shaft full of no's. It's D&D, D&D Beyond, yeah, D&D, D&D Beyond. You got your stats, you got your swords, and you got your invisible wall. It's D&D, D&D Beyond.
Hello, everyone. This is Todd Talks. I am joined by the cast of D4. How is everyone doing?
Great.
Fantastic. How are you, Todd?
Awesome.
Doing excellent.
So, how did the show? What is the show, and how did it come about? Like, where is it set? Obviously, this is D&D.
We are D&D. We came about, so my 3-year campaign was coming to an end last summer, and I had gone to the Stream of Many Eyes and happened to experience Dragon Heist and Waterdeep in all of its glory. And once my game was ending, I was like, you know what? Maybe we'll start streaming the next one. Devan was a player. We co-ran a bunch of stuff at a LARP we played and helped run. And so I was like, hey, Devan, what do you think about co-DMing this game and doing it as a stream? And one thing after another just kind of kept leading to more and more stuff. We reached out to Rock Punch ATL, our production company who produces the show, and it all just kind of kept going.
Yeah, everybody was very enthusiastic about it as we were, and it was really surprising. And everything just went from a concept to a full-fledged thing in 2 months. And it was like going real fast, and we're like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? I guess we got to do this now. And I'm so glad we did. We have an amazing cast, a bunch of friends of ours, some of it family, and people that we've met and role played with over the past couple of years. And I think we have an amazing group.
Yeah, I agree.
I hope you feel that way.
I mean, no, I hate him.
Yeah.
They're the worst.
What happens when people get real?
I mean, that Devan guy's awful, but I mean, that's just
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, they fight constantly. No.
So where is this set? What is the setting?
We are set in Waterdeep, in Faerun, Forgotten Realms. We are running a very, very, very heavily modified Dragon Heist. I fell in love with the storyline at Stream of Many Eyes, but we kind of took the adventure and we are literally
stripping it down to its bare bones and then rebuilding it in our own concept. So one of the things that is unique again about ours that viewers will instantly pick up is instead of focusing on one season or one of the main bad guys, you get a little taste of everything throughout the whole thing. So it keeps people that have played the campaign on their toes or know about the campaign on their toes because they can't pick up on the details of who the bad guy actually is.
Yep.
So all of the various bosses that you have a choice to basically have to try to thwart are all in play all at the same time.
All at the same time, and they are almost nothing like they are in the book. We have completely changed almost everything about them, and we've tailored it to a more overarching story because Dragon Heist only goes to 5th level. We plan on running this to 20th level, so we've already started to seed in a few of those elements, and we're 14 episodes in, and we're barely into Dragon Heist. We've almost very little bit touched on the actual story itself.
And I'm curious, what level is everyone at this point?
3.
3?
They're currently level 3. Yep.
But it's not from another
I
thing
just
that's
got the
different
swashbuckler subclass, and I'm so glad I got it.
Yeah. He's
Another thing that's
finally at a
different-
part where he's not constantly dying.
is
I haven't died that much.
You did for at
More
least
than
the
the
first
rest of
5
you.
to 7 sessions. You're
Okay.
always on the brink of death.
Todd,
But,
confirm this for me. Are not Kenku the deadliest enemies you can face in D&D?
No, they're not.
Look at that
Very
face.
weird question. I mean, it depends. Do you have bird seed on you?
I mean,
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't know,
No, you
maybe.
did not. You did not have bird
Maybe.
feet on you.
You died
don't
because
know
of a
that.
Kenku. It's very hard
Yeah.
to like anger
I mean,
a
that was-
Kenku to the point
And
of
then I
like
killed the
level one.
Kenku, so I ended up being okay.
Yeah,
They were
a
like,
level
I think
1
the
and a crit.
yeah, level
the
1 and a
first
crit
attack roll
doesn't
you
go
ever
well.
made against me was a crit.
I think the
at
first
least
like
it didn't-
3 attack rolls I made against you were critical hits.
Oh,
I-
yeah.
Yeah, they really were. Because y'all just kept laughing about it. We'd see you roll and we'd be like, oh god, Logan's dead.
Mhm.
So if you've ever been bitten by a bird, that is a horrible death.
You've been bitten by a bird? Did you
I
know that
used to-
ducks have teeth? Ducks have
Yeah.
teeth. It's freaky. Look it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
Seagulls,
oh my
if you
goodness.
like, you can feed seagulls and they'll float right next to you if you're like giving them chips, but sometimes they're gonna get your finger as well. It's quite painful.
Yikes.
Anyways, just a little bit of knowledge. So yeah, Kenku, not the deadliest enemy in D&D. I feel really bad for you, Patrick. Feel your shame. Captain America and his crotch are judging you from behind. So.
Absolutely.
That's not my
Captain
Captain
America is like,
America.
you don't deserve this.
Yep.
You don't
Judging
deserve
Captain
this.
America crotch.
What was the most difficult thing about like bringing the group together and like figuring out the whole live streaming thing? Because people don't realize how difficult that is. Like I've been in television for like 20 years, and it's one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Is trying to get a D&D group together and then also live stream.
And then also, I mean, same issue with normal D&D play is
Same.
scheduling. We just, and we opted for Sundays because one, we're not at work on Sundays, which is great.
Yeah.
Unless you're me
Sunday-
sometimes.
Yeah, some and Sundays are not when a lot of streams go, so it was a good time slot to fill. But it was making sure everybody could be there every week at the same time. And it
That was one of our criterias.
Yeah, when we talked to the cast and we're putting the cast together, we knew exactly who we wanted. And luckily, we got everybody who we wanted. It all worked out so wonderfully. We reached out to them and they happily joined in and were able to meet the criteria of the scheduling conflicts. And that just was super, super just amazing.
So if everyone could go around the room or rooms, can you tell us about your character and why you chose the character, and how has it been going so far for them? I think I already know how Death by Kenku is doing.
It was a
let's go
close call.
clockwise.
It was.
No judgments.
I mean, they
no
mimic
judgments.
you.
Yeah,
It's strange. It's intimidating.
Let's go.
they mimic you
let's go
while you're dying,
clockwise.
so they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
God, please stop." Yeah, pretty rough.
start
So
with,
yeah, tell me
Adkins?
about each character.
Katie, you want to start?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can start. Okay, so my character's name is Viomiliana Gathala, and I wanted to play something I had never played before. Normally, I play like high elf sorcerers and wizards and stuff a lot when I typically play. So this time I decided to go with a Goliath barbarian. And then they were like, "You're gonna be in Waterdeep," and I was like, "How am I in Waterdeep?" So we decided to come up with I'm gonna touch like slightly on backstory. Basically, she comes from a wealthy family in Waterdeep, but they had abandoned their tribe to like live on their own and make their own wealth in the city. So while she comes from a lot of privilege, she's still kind of like one of the only few of her kind. She's constantly surrounded by humans, grew up with humans, only Goliaths she's ever known as her own family. So like she fits in but also feels ostracized at the same time and just really wants to go out and fight. Very aggressive.
The biggest difference for Cadkins' character is that she lives in a family of nobles, they're actually a noble family within Waterdeep. So, which is very weird and strange, and later will reveal itself as to why.
How that happened.
Yeah, and how that happened.
Yeah. There's a whole backstory as to how it happened because it's very unusual, but yeah.
I'm getting some kind of Loki Asgardian vibe thing. But they take in the frost giant.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Who's next? Who wants to talk about their character?
I will go. Originally, when we proposed a character, I think I talked to both of you and I was just like, I just want to be a dude who goes on an adventure, and you said no. No, do better. I think I wanted to be a tabaxi. I essentially wanted to be Salazar, which if you haven't watched the latest episode, he's a very excitable lizard man who's with us.
Lizard man, right? Is what you said?
He's a
Man.
lizard folk.
I thought you said wizard for a moment, and I was like, what?
He's
Sorry,
a lizard
continue,
wizard.
Continue.
A lizard wizard.
Lizard wizard. Yes. So Voss. I had to sit down, and I'm an actor and improviser by trade. So I did what I do whenever I'm trying to be able to play a character, which is go down into the nitty gritty of where he came from, who he knows, who he's associated with. None of which I can really say here. But to really shape how he'd respond to situations, because I've been improvising for as long as I've been acting, and you need concrete details about who you are to be able to properly respond to things whenever they come at you. So the deeper I could write it out, and you can ask Dustin and Devan because I keep sending them shit. It's like, and this is this character who knew me, and this is this character who knew me, probably to the point of annoyance.
We have a dissertation on Bob, but we love it.
I quite love that kind of thing.
Because it helps us build the world around the characters and really tie in their backstory and really make the story about them, because they are in a city, but this is still our game, and it is their story, and so we as the DMs can build and tailor the story around their characters and truly give that character growth. Because even now we're in episode 14. The difference between characters starting at session 1 at level 1 to where they are now just at level 3, it's a mile. I mean, it's across countries how far these characters have come. In literally, they've known each other for a week and a half in game.
Right.
And forget that.
They've been through so much, and there has been so much character growth in that week and a half of in-game time that is incredible, and it's because of the amazing backstories that they have sent us and the amazing work that they put in to make these characters feel so real and visceral. So, but I'll let Raya go because I cut off Logan there. Just wanted to.
No, you're
okay. My character, when they first asked me to do this, I knew exactly who I was going to play, because when I made this character for a home game, she was designed to have a story that I wanted to tell to a lot of people, and she means a lot to me. And she's a high elf wizard from a very weird background that hasn't really been brought out at all, but I just really love her. And she started, like, speaking on character growth already, she started really snarky, emotionally standoffish, and rude to almost everyone that she came across. Now she meets someone and doesn't trust them immediately by any means, but has a hesitant moment where she doesn't immediately start hating them. And it's because of the party and their influence on her already.
Yeah, I assume this is the first group that she's ever been in.
Oh yeah, that actually came up in one of the first couple sessions when they were asking her how old she was. She says, I'm 250 years old and I've never had a friend before.
Oh.
What does it?
Yeah.
And then everyone freaked out, and I'm like, I'm 19, and y'all are like, what?
Who's next?
I mean, well, there's the DMs, and
we're the
DMs.
Many we'll talk to the
Which one do you want to know about?
I mean, one of the things that Devan and I, we worked so well together. We've told stories together. We play off each other really well. And so one of the great things that I love about having another DM, because this is honestly the first time either of us have co-DM'd a game. We both DM'd games for many years. But one of the benefits and the main things is when we get to play multiple NPCs at the same time, we're not doing multiple voices. We get to play off each other. And, when we're playing an old elderly couple that's being threatened, we get to fall into each other's arms and be scared as one, holds the other one, while, this old halfling elderly couple gets threatened to death. But, what are you
You're
going
gonna
to
hold that over me for a long time, aren't you?
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, how does that work? How does I mean, I've co-DM'd before, but not necessarily co-DMing in the same game at the same time. Like we would take breaks. We'd like have a continuous campaign, 3 months, someone else would run, 3 months, someone else would run. But you are both doing it
simultaneously. Yes.
Yeah.
So we talked to a bunch of people about this concept, and it's actually not as uncommon as a lot of people think, but I think we're the first to do it on stream. And the beauty of it is when we talked to a bunch of other people, they were like, yeah, I deal with the logistics and mechanics, and I'll do all of the fights and stuff like that. And the other person will take care of story and role play, and then that's how they do the dynamic. Dustin and I are 50-50 on everything. So we write together, we build all of our crazy maps together, and then like he was saying, we role play at the same time, playing multiple characters, so you don't have all of the 5 NPCs in your head at once. You only have to keep track of a couple, which makes the role play more organic. It feels more real, feels more natural, and when it comes into fights, we'll split the one of us will take the big bad of the fight, and then the others will take the crunchies and stuff like that.
Either or. We'll even we'll read off descriptions and we'll play off each other, and we'll nudge each other under the table when we basically have a tell to each other that, all right, you take this over or I'll take this over, and we just play off each other really well. And if you're going to co-DM, you have to be able to trust that person. And if that person does, it's very much the yes and improv on our end too, because there may be something that we haven't planned that the players are going to do, because that's going to happen every single time, no matter what we do, because this is Dungeons and Dragons, and that's what happens. We'll take that, and whoever is the first to take that action and run with it, then the other one will play off of that. And it's that very much yes and improv aspect on the DMing side as well as the player side.
We haven't co-DM'd a D&D game before, but we co-ran a LARP for 8 to 10 years. Yeah. And so that's where we found that we're like, we mesh really well together. We kind of have the same mindset of what kind of story and what kind of emotion we want to tell through our story. And so that's when he was like, hey, do you want to co-DM something? And I was like, yeah, we can do this.
Okay.
I personally love having 2 DMs. It's so fun. And sometimes in the past, I've played with bad DMs. I've played with really good DMs. But sometimes when you're by yourself doing something, you always end up kind of seeing someone at a loss for have to make a split second decision. And I really love the way the 2 of them work together on it. It's 2 minds are better than one. It's really fun.
Yeah, I think the only time I've ever done anything similar to that, I had 2 assistant DMs because, everyone wanted, it was Christmas time and everyone wanted to come over, and we had a game, and so we had 14 players.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
so we split everyone in 2. We had a giant, massive table, and each section of the table was actually going on a different section of a mission. All tied together, so it was like a heist thing. So
sounds awesome.
One part of the table.
Can I join? That sounds amazing.
It was affectionately called the holiday episode, and it was very intense and worthwhile. Awesome. Lots of death and destruction. So
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I love holiday and theme sessions.
That's definitely when the weird stuff starts coming out. We do have a few questions from chat. DMs, who are your favorite characters to play so far in the game?
Oh, my favorite. I love Mama Uwe. She is this tiefling that is a very old tiefling. I described her. She's one of my favorite descriptions. I'm not going to go through it because there's just so much detail to her. But she's kind of like voodoo inspired. And so her magic's a little different. But it's all, I love the descriptions of her magic. It all seems slightly, now that they've kind of encountered one, slightly the way hags cast, which is always a little harder to to arcana check and things like that. So it's more old magic is how I describe her casting. It's a lot of fun. She also has a really fun
For you,
voice.
Dustin?
Probably there's an NPC called Gariel, who's this like Southern Belle, takes no shit lady who she doesn't act like a lady, but she has that like Southern Belle prim and properness to her. But she puts the players on edge, and I enjoy playing her because I'm from the South and I get to
creepy and surreal is what it is.
Things and but she's fun to play.
Well, my question now is for all the players: who's your least favorite character in the game that the
Gariel.
GMs are running?
Gariel. My favorite though is Salazar. I love Salazar. Devan plays him, and it's so fun.
My least favorite essentially are any NPCs that are able to kill me or take me down. So my current least favorite ones would be just the general city guards we have in Waterdeep.
Chris and Mike.
Who I think the rest of the cast named.
Yes.
Hold on, let's not get into that. That's
I gotcha. Favorites. Aside from Salazar, who is too pure and good for this world, I actually really like Mama Uwe, despite the fact that my character despises most things associated with magic. It's just, there's a lot of detail put into that character so that she seems, like we were talking about before, visceral and real, and everything in her shop and from her looks to everything else kind of reflects her, and I like that aspect of her.
Yeah, and Salazar, just to give a little backstory, is a lizard folk who they just recently, we'll say, acquired, as he has joined the party in a fun situation, and he is he's a lizard folk who just wants to be an adventurer, and he is very pure and innocent.
So I take back what I said. My favorite's actually Monty.
Monty is a talking horse.
The talking horse. It's all you need to know is he's a talking horse.
The silly NPCs are always the favorite. The one-offs, you're like, all right, this is just something it'll never catch, and they're always the favorite, no matter what you do.
How can a talking horse never catch?
Almost impossible to keep comedy from being part of D&D, no matter how dark
it's
it
good.
gets.
I'll say this, we are a very, very dark and real game. We have our comedy elements, but Devan and I are dark storytellers. We like emotion. We like to push emotion on our players, whether that's sadness, fear, happiness, laughter, no matter what. So we tend to move towards the more macabre and creepypasta style of storytelling, and so that is definitely evident in our storytelling with D4. So when we do have those funny moments, we love it because there is a lot of tears in our game, and it's just the way that we tell our stories and how real and amazing that our players are. So we do have to have that balance.
How many times have you made me cry? Like 3 or 4?
I mean,
I think it's
I don't
5.
know. I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea.
There's a question from chat, which I kind of know. They're asking why this slow level progression. Often people, like, if you're going from 1 to 3, that usually happens within 3 to 5 sessions. They're just curious. I know from my end, it depends how long you want to keep playing. So once you hit level 20, things are dicey.
Yeah. Dragon Heist, is only a campaign from 1 to 5, level 1 to 5, and there's just so much sandbox and so much put into the book that we loved, and we wanted to highlight that. And so the slower milestone progression allows for us to incorporate that, because those that have read Dragon Heist or know about Dragon Heist know that typically when the players hit level 3, things are supposed to go a lot faster, and you don't have time for the little nuances or for the sand getting to highlight the city of Waterdeep more, and also incorporate all of the changes we put into the game, and this allows us to tell that story. It is slower. There are times where we're like, we wish we could go faster, but also being lower level, and Voss can attest to this. Voss is played by Patrick. The grappling hook, the ball bearings, these things that don't get highlighted in later levels because you're just like, oh, I have a magic spell for that, or it doesn't matter, my skills are too great to even have to worry about those things. They are so highlighted in these low levels, it causes great tension, and it's a lot of fun to play around with, I guess, a Batman-esque level of simplicity.
Well,
In
there's
Devan
inherent
sorry.
inherent fun in, and I think this may get lost because in D&D everybody likes to feel powerful, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there is inherent fun in being weak, and particularly being in an environment that is oppressive. When you feel everything is coming on top of you, your decisions need to be a lot clearer, and bad decisions have a lot more impact on you. And to me, that's an extremely fun part of the game. Like, I'm the only person in the group who doesn't feel touched by some kind of magical property in a way. Like V, obviously she's a barbarian, she doesn't have any spells, but there's something inherently interesting about her ancestral background, whereas I'm just a dude with swords at the end of the day. So I've got to put a little more thought into actions, the tools I have, what I need, and everything like that. To me, that's fun. I love doing stuff like that. Like, that grappling hook is the most useful thing we have bought out of everything. It's been used so much, and it's my best friend. So
So also Devan touched on a
there's
little bit, but
Hmm?
you know, so Devan touched on a little bit, but Dragon Heist is based in Waterdeep, and there is so much history and so much to the city of Waterdeep, and it's something that we want to build on and wanted to build on, and by having a slower progression, it allows us to continue to build the story around them, and it really helps, again, make these characters feel like real people. Like, you're, when we tell our story in our game, we want it to feel like you're watching an episode of a television show, and you want to know what happens on the next episode because of how real these players feel to you. And by delving into the city of Waterdeep with a slower progression of leveling, we can do that and bring it out in the story itself.
Once we get out of Waterdeep, we're not sure how fast that progression is going to change. So it may end up going quicker, and it may stay at the same pace. It all depends on the feeling and the tone of that arc of the story, and what the best way to tell the story, honestly.
And we are Milestone, in case you haven't figured that out. No, we haven't said it, but we are definitely a Milestone game. We're not an XP game.
You're just murdering guards, at night just for XP.
Just gotta get that.
What do you think has been the biggest challenge of doing all of this? Whether it's like story work, character work, what's been maybe one of the biggest difficulties bringing everyone together?
Time.
I feel like everyone has different things that have been difficult for them.
Like,
for me,
continue.
Who wants to start? I don't know. For me, at a game, scheduling is always is a struggle. I don't work a normal and 5 jobs, so occasionally I do have to work on a Sunday where we normally would be, but I've done my best to make sure that doesn't really happen at all in the future. In the game, I would definitely say, like, while my character doesn't struggle with ever dying because she has so much health and is so strong and everything, she struggles a lot, like, emotionally, which for me, as like a role play person, I guess improv in the game can be challenging to need to stay in character, stay true to her emotions, how she would act in that situation, how she would react to people in her immediate vicinity. Like sometimes you don't like everybody in your party, and that's going to affect things. And sometimes you form really strong bonds and feel betrayed and all this other stuff. And it's been really fun, but also challenging on a role play aspect to be that true to character with those level of emotions.
Very cool.
On our end, it's definitely time and the prep side of it. But it's not something that we would change for the world. We just wish that there was more than 7 days in a week, 6 days in between sessions, especially when, Devan and I both work in the film industry and we work, 12 to 14-hour days on set. And then we come home and we stay up and prep and write and custom build maps. And so we don't get a lot of sleep or have free time anymore. And we don't really know what those things are. So I live on coffee now, and that's pretty much what it looks like.
You're doing God's work.
So one of the things is not a lot of people, but we've gotten a little criticism about like, well, they're putting that much effort into map building that obviously has to be railroaded. And I can tell you no, because we had a certain map that they experienced last night built for the past month, maybe month and a half. Every fight that we plan, we build a map for it. And if we don't have a map made for it, we'll either have a backup one that's kind of generic, or we'll just do theater of the mind if the players instigate something that we weren't expecting. So every map is made, even if we get to it or not. And it really sucks when we don't get to it.
When you stay up until 6:30 the previous morning getting 3 maps built, and then you don't get to any of them for a month and a half.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing miniatures. We have actually a couple of photos of like the miniatures and the settings that you guys have built on the table. Can we go ahead and look at some of those? Like these are really quite elaborate.
It's my favorite one.
That was terrifying.
So what was this? What was happening here?
So that is go ahead, Devan.
You take it.
Okay, that's the a swamp that in our deep forest from the couple episodes ago, and so they kind of went in thinking they were gonna just gather some mushrooms and have some fun and be in and out, and they got there and found out that it's corrupted and awful and a horrible swamp, and they came in, and so with this map in particular, there are pocket holes of like quick mud throughout this map that actually are in the map. So with the fog hiding it, we can go in and actually put the players in it. And there is also a miniature hiding in said fog that we get to pull out of and surprise them during the actual gameplay, which is a lot of fun.
And you've got like dry ice coming off of it as well.
Yes, this is a dry ice rig that we set up, and so there's actually a pan underneath the map itself that has dry ice in it, and we pour water on it, and then that gets it going, and it lasts for about 45 minutes to an hour before it needs to be refilled, and so that was actually enough time to really get the fog through the encounter.
That's intense. Like how instrumental is a scene like that to having all the players kind of immersed in combat?
In the beginning, they are all so excited out of play that we kind of have to, herd cats back into game, which is great. We love it. But it also, they're like, oh, no, because they're like, that's awesome. And Goblin Katie says it all the times. We're so boned, and it's amazing. It helps, I think, We do both, where we go very elaborate into our detailed descriptions to get the mind's eye theater going. And then when we put the map out, it just helps fuel that immersion. So people aren't just thinking about it, they're literally seeing it. And it's easier to stay in character and have that fear or the other emotion of uncertainty.
We've got a couple other slides of photos you've taken as well. So like, yeah. So what happened? I mean, nothing good happened here.
Everything good. All the good things happened here.
Monsters I've ever encountered happened.
So this is
Here, by the
the City
way.
of the Dead. And the City of the Dead, as people know in Waterdeep, is the biggest park of Waterdeep, where it's also the biggest cemetery. And it's a nice place to go for, pay your respects and see all of the statues and fountains and stuff that are there. It's very beautiful. Nothing bad ever happens there.
Ever.
I mean,
Especially not with that.
yeah.
Yeah,
That statue is amazing.
just ignore it. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
So yeah, it was definitely
there
a
might
fun
be
thing.
there might be some guardians if you do some bad things, but that all depends on what the players do.
No, it's just Art Deco.
Mhm.
Totally just it's just there.
Well, do we have any more of these? These are just really amazing. Oh, this is like fantastic as well. So what was this encounter? What went down?
That is just an old lady and her nephew. Don't worry about it.
Yep, totally nothing to see here whatsoever. Just a nice
Yeah, that
old
was-
lady.
Well, we walked into that place, didn't we?
Yeah, no, it was a nice casual stroll through the forest.
Just
So-
a
How do
nice
you make,
walk in the
how do you make a
forest.
lot of these? By the way, like, are you doing this from scratch, or like this looks like some clearly actual moss is being used, but like a lot of this stuff looks like you've made it yourself.
90% of the map will build from scratch. So the main material we use is foam core. A lot of the floors and bases will be done in foam core. Also pink insulation foam of various thicknesses. The water is just a clear sheet of plastic plexiglass with hot glue done for the rippling effects. The spikes with the skulls are literally just toothpicks with skulls from Citadel. There's tongue depressors, twine. I mean, we pretty much just raid the dollar store and build the entire map from things we find at the dollar store, is really what it boils down to.
That is an intense amount of work. What if they don't want to go to this location? What happens?
We don't use it.
That map just goes back on the shelf, and if they ever decide to go back, then we'll pull that map out again.
So when we were previously talking about building maps, this is the type of maps we are talking
This-
about. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
Every encounter we plan for, and we gauge it based on what happened into the episode, where we think they're going to go, and we build where we think they're going to go, and we'll have various maps, and we'll build it to that. And if they never go there, then that map you'll either get repurposed into something else, as well, and we'll change it on our end to what it is that just flows with the narrative of the story, or that map just doesn't ever get used.
is there like a shelf of sorrow, like where all the sad maps that no one wanted to play?
There's a room.
There is. And we've talked about, if we ever, get to 1,000 Twitch subscribers, if that ever happens in our career of storytelling, then we'll actually start raffling off some of these maps that we never are going to use again, so that they get out of my house and stop taking up shelf space.
Stop making you sad.
I know
And
that
stop
feeling.
making me sad.
I would like to raffle off old production equipment soon.
I have a garage full of stuff that I would love to give away.
Yeah, I don't know why I have 20,000 HDMI cables. Less entertaining than like homemade maps, but yeah, things build up pretty quick. How do you feel about? I mean, even in the time that you've started D4, what do you think is behind the rise of D&D becoming so popular now? Like, we are, I would argue, definitely at the beginning of the golden age of D&D.
I agree 1,000%, and I cannot believe where we are. I mean, I've been through the satanic panic. I've been, the shunned kid in high school and middle school who who play Dungeons and Dragons and Baldur's Gate and all of these nerd things, and to look on, and I'm going to give a shout out to our amazing people over at Critical Role. $11 million raised on Kickstarter for a Dungeons and Dragons show cartoon. I'm humbled, I'm speechless, I'm so happy for them. The fact that we are in this era of one of the greatest storytelling games ever made is just, I love it. I love seeing it. I love the community. I love seeing everyone's posts on Twitter that I don't even know, who tell me about their game, and reading on Reddit. And it just, to me personally, I love it. I smile. It makes me smile when I'm having a bad day. It's an incredible thing.
How has it affected our players?
Woo!
Hey, I'm the one who
just
asked
the
the
rise.
questions. What are you doing?
Just why it's so popular right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think a lot of people haven't really had an opportunity to get interactive storytelling down. Like, I originally met Dustin and Devan because we both hosted a trademark nondescript Space Wars game in a D&D format, and that was my first taste of it. Like I said, I've been improvising as long as I've been acting. I didn't realize the extent of improv that played. I literally thought it was, hey, here's a dragon, go slay it, whatever your class might be. But it's a lot more complex than that. And as time went on in that same campaign, I started delving into the character. And our DM at the time went along with that up to a point where it's like Dustin and I, our characters, had a climactic confrontation. And I think at that point I was hooked, because pieces where characters drive story interest me a lot more than when plot drives it. So knowing that it can be so character driven is really what made it appeal to me. And I think what people are learning is that they have that kind of agency and autonomy over a story, because they see streams like, hopefully ours, probably more Critical Role, and see the kind of autonomy those players have. And it's like, I want to do that. I want to feel like part of a grand tale, but also have control over it. At least appeal to it for me.
That makes sense, and I totally agree. And people don't necessarily understand what D&D is until they play D&D.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I was growing up, I grew up in an environment where it was definitely not cool to like anything nerdy. So I didn't have many friends who had like the same interests as me. Therefore, I never was able to have a group to play a game like D&D until I was in college. I'd always wanted to try it. I'd always kind of knew what it was. I'd met people in passing who had played it and like explained it to me, but all I ever saw was stuff in media. And I was like, even still though, I was like, this still looks really cool though. So the first time I played it, even though I didn't have the best group, it was still super fun. And I loved everything about it, with like when I learned all the rules and how you fight and all the role playing stuff. And I was just like, this is super cool. I wish more people did this and knew about it. And it took a few years, but here we are, and now everyone seems to know what it is. But I remember I told one of my old friends from high school when I first started playing in early college, which was like almost 10 years ago. I was like, yeah, I just started playing Dungeons and Dragons, and she got it confused with World of Warcraft. And she's just like, don't people get like super obsessed with that game? Like, oh my God, is it going to consume your life? Like, are you going to be okay? And I was like, yeah, fine. It's actually a social game with other people in the same room. It was pretty funny how so many of my friends just didn't even know what it was. They had just heard of it.
Yeah, and now I kind of feel like everyone knows what D&D is. Like my neighbor knows.
Yeah.
Like I just moved into a new neighborhood, and
Yeah.
it's a very
A couple
weird
people thought it
feeling.
was just LARPing, and they thought I was a LARPer. And I've always wanted to try that, but no, I've never LARPed. It's not what it is.
I've taken one too many hits to the knee. What's everyone's player tips for those who are just new to D&D and they're watching a stream like yours and it gets them excited to actually play D&D? What are your initial tips, whether they're Dungeon Master tips or player tips?
Have fun.
Yeah, have
Like
fun. But
yep.
a big
Go
struggle
ahead.
for me as a player, when I first started off, was if I didn't give myself some sort of goal to work for in the story, I would find my characters would be kind of lost. And so if you're not used to the role play environment where you create characters and stuff like that, I think it really helps new players to make sure that your personal character has a goal they're working towards. Just something for you to keep in mind as you play. I think that's some good advice.
Uh,
I wish I had early on.
Relish Failure.
Yes.
That I think is super important because D&D is gambling. It's like tactical gambling, but you're gonna hit those ones and you're gonna look stupid, or you're gonna fall into prison, or you may even die. Relish those moments, and relish the moments where you feel powerful and try to think your way out of it, rather than feeling like, oh well, I fucked up. No, that's not the way this works. You relish the failure, and then you keep moving past it. You either get back up, or you're like, you relish the moment of it. Like, I think it feels like, and maybe in a D&D game when things go wrong, it's like you messed up, and most of the time that's not the case. It's just, this is how the story has progressed now, and just run with it.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are the
and
best parts. Like, some people think of failure as like when you stick by your character and you do something that is outside of the game, relatively a dumb thing to do, maybe, or maybe it's not the
Yeah.
easiest route. But when players, and I recently had this on my show, Heroes of the Veil, we had a character that stuck
So
to
good.
her guns. She did not
Mhm.
acquiesce to like the easiest solution to literally bringing
Yeah.
a character back to life, and that
Mhm.
can be extremely stressful as a player because you want everyone to be alive, but also if you're playing for
Yeah.
your character, it's pretty amazing.
Mhm.
So
And
That
the
kind of
other thing,
emotional stress makes the game more engaging too,
yeah,
in my opinion.
100% agree. And the other thing is don't compare yourselves to Critical Role, us, other shows out there. Do whatever it is that you need to do at your table, because as long as you and your players are having fun and a good time, that's all that matters. You don't have to
Yeah.
custom build maps. You don't have to have miniatures. You don't have to be actors. As long as you are at that table having fun, telling a story, being as goofy or serious as you want, that is all that matters.
yeah, and yeah, sometimes people don't quite understand that. Like, I've gone, like, I don't enjoy dungeon crawls anymore. I enjoyed them when I was younger. They were like fun and entertaining, but like there's no room for me. Like, I was in theater and film for a very long time, so there's no opportunity for me to role play or work on character stuff when I'm just trying to avoid a giant boulder rolling over me and murdering me. But some people are really into that. Some
Yeah.
people are like, I just want to play it like a tabletop game and go through a map and see if my character survives and get a bunch of XP, and that's totally fine as well.
Yeah.
Wargamer.
Yeah, exactly. Like a video game.
What's
I would say
Yeah.
D&D is pushed more towards acting and role playing than ever before, because there are so many video games now, and everyone wants to unplug. And video games don't give you the opportunity to role play in the way that D&D does. I mean, you have more than 3 options in D&D for what you want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's as somebody who enjoys like certain video games that give kind of option, it's nice to be able to say whatever I want to say in a conversation. Even if it screws everything up, it's like, wow, even though everything's on fire now, I did this. And there's some satisfaction in that.
Oh, good.
Indeed.
Nah, so literally until this game, maybe it's because I'm now playing a barbarian, but whenever we would like, I guess maybe it's also my previous campaigns, I was never really a big fan of like dungeon crawling either. I was always more interested in the role playing, social aspect of it. But this campaign, maybe it's the way that Dustin and Devan have the fights like in the storyline with like really cool creatures and people that you fight. But I love it now when we get into a fight. It's so fun. You bring the map out. You got all these little figures. It's a blast.
Yeah, see that makes me love combat way more when I can like see the miniatures and there's
Yeah.
like fog and that's like more again it's theater. So that makes combat way more fun for me. Combat can last a bit long. So
Yeah.
if combat's going to
Yeah.
last long, yeah, it should be on a
Yeah.
really kick-ass map. So
Also, without the visual, you're like always asking, like, how far away? Where are they? Are they over here? Are they next to me? Like, how many of them are there? Like, it gets rid of all those questions.
did the DMs have any tips about dungeon mastering? I feel terrible. Raya is frozen and having technical difficulties.
She's trying to get back to us.
Yeah, she's not just being uncharacteristically cool and calm. So
She's giving that Vinley look right now with that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's very Vinley. So my tips for DMing is Dustin and I are very different when it comes to preparing, because he is way more improv, which is awesome because it counteracts I think about everything that the players could do, and I actually write out either quick notes for that scenario, or like there'll be parts where like I have huge descriptions for stuff and they're just like, no, we're not going for that. I'm like, okay. And it's just like building maps, like, well, there goes that. Maybe I'll bring it in later. But there are still times where players, especially in the episode that is coming up next week, throw huge wrenches in the game, and I have not written. It's not a thing I could ever think of, but because I have Dustin at my side and we work really well off of each other, the best is I'll start something and he'll finish it, or he'll start something and I'll finish it. But my tip to other DMs is know your players, because you're telling a story altogether. You're not creating a story for yourself that they're going to play in, and they're not playing a game that you don't want to tell. Definitely have that open communication so that everybody has fun. And I like to be over prepared. That doesn't mean you have to be over prepared. If you're great at improv, awesome. And if you're not, write more notes, take a little bit more time, and have fun. I go on hours of research and learning about like when we wrote out the Font of Knowledge Cathedral, I actually learned cathedral Renaissance architecture and described that. So if you're having writer's block or something like that, have fun researching and bringing more detail to your world.
Yeah, and my 2 cents on that would be: don't fear the wrenches that your players are going to throw at you.
No, that's
it's going to
the best
happen. It absolutely. And so you do not be afraid that things may not go as planned, because I can tell you right now, they're not going to. Things will change. You will plan for A through Q, and they're going to do Z. And it's just, and if you need to take a moment, just be open to your players. Say, hey guys, give me just a second. Let me collect myself, and we'll get back into this. If that's the case. Otherwise, if you just start describing things and just have fun with it. But again, don't fear those changes, because let the story itself tell itself. Don't force issues that aren't there. So
to add more, I was going to say, let the tiniest things that your players do create a butterfly effect, because when they do something small and then later on it comes back and then you can explain, because you did this little thing, all of this went into progression into this bigger thing. It is a lot of fun for both the storyteller and the people that help catalyze that progression. Patrick runs a nondescript Space Wars game for us now, and he is really amazing at that. He
Thank you.
Yeah, there are times where like the smallest little nuance that one of our characters does pays off, or screws us really bad later on, but there's a direct correlation. And that's one of the things I was saying about communication, both in and out of play. Just let your players also help write your story.
Yeah, I write tons of story, and I never want that to have that come to pass. So whenever a player destroys that or decides to completely abandon a quest, nothing makes me happier. And it's a very weird DM thing, but especially when you've been DMing for a very, very long time, chaos is the most fun because you've learned to improvise. Yeah.
It is difficult, but it is the most fun.
Yeah, certainly it's difficult, and maybe you won't come up with the best like side plot line. But like I have players who just decided to start a pirate fleet. So because we had like one player missing, and they're like, "Let's start a pirate fleet," and so I'm like, "Yep, they started a pirate
It's
fleet."
a casual decision.
Amazing.
Like you do.
Yeah, but they're like, "Okay, well, we gotta get our first boat," and they just kind of progressed, and that was 4 hours of just hustling, paying people off, stealing ships. Like it was just, and it had nothing to do with me. Like it really had nothing to do with me, other than
You were
like,
just reacting.
Yeah, just reacting to them versus them reacting to me. Or I would say the buy-in was like everyone was at the same level. Everyone was having the exact level of input. And I love those moments. So yeah, players, don't actively destroy your DM's plot, but be willing to do your own thing. I think is probably like a good lesson from all of this. Well, we are
Boss
about
wants
out
to
of
start a bakery.
Yeah. We're out of time. Where can people watch D4 and what time?
All right, so you can catch us Sundays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we are on twitch.tv/rockpunchatl or twitch.tv/DND. We are hosted by the D&D channel, so if you don't catch us there, you can find us on the D&D channel. And
Excellent.
every Sundays at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
All right. Thank you everyone for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm really sorry that we lost one of our guests, but I'm impressed that we like the cameras exploded. I'm excited to see more of the show. So thank you so much. Check out D4 as soon as you can.
Thank you guys. Thanks, Todd, for having us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great day. Bye.
Jackson, each other.